Did Vikings actually wear horned helmets? Well, not if you go by the archaeological evidence. But if you've seen Hollywood movies or 19th century paintings, then you probably think they did. So why do we have this image of Vikings with horned helmets? Well, it was invented during the 1800s. During that time, there was a surge of interest in Norse mythology and ancient European history. People wanted to learn about the past, and they wanted to make the past seem exciting and dramatic. So they created this image of fierce, exotic, even barbaric warriors with horned helmets. It made for good art, and it reinforced the idea of Vikings as ferocious fighters. But where did this image come from? Well, it was partly inspired by a couple of 13th century manuscripts that depicted Vikings with horned helmets. But these are pretty vague, and they could be depicting a lot of different cultures, not just Vikings. And there's no archaeological evidence that Vikings wore horned helmets. In fact, archaeologists haven't found any helmets from the Viking Age at all, so we don't really know what they looked like. But the Romantic artists and writers of the 1800s didn't let that stop them. They wanted to create a dramatic and striking image, and they thought that horned helmets would help with that. They also drew inspiration from contemporary cultures that still wore horned helmets, such as the Sami people of Northern Europe. The Sami are an indigenous people who have lived in Norway, Sweden, and Finland for thousands of years. Their traditional clothing often includes a horned helmet, and this is probably what inspired 19th century artists. But it wasn't just about looking cool, there was also a practical reason for wearing a horned helmet, at least for the Sami. The horns could protect a warrior's head and face from blows and slashes. But again, there's no evidence that Vikings did this. In fact, the archaeological evidence suggests that Vikings probably wore simple leather helmets, if they wore helmets at all. Some of these helmets had metal bosses or decorations, but none of them had horns. The image of the horned Viking helmet is so iconic that it has become a symbol of the entire Viking Age. It's on everything from postcards to coffee mugs to Halloween costumes. And even though we know now that Vikings probably didn't wear horned helmets, we still like to imagine them in those helmets. Maybe it's because it makes for a good story, or maybe it's because we just like the way that they look. But whatever the reason, the image of the horned Viking helmet has become a part of our culture. So there you have it. The image of Vikings wearing horned helmets was invented in the 19th century.